So if I was to take inventory of my guitar collection, say a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, there would be no baritones in sight. Well, I guess that's not totally true. I did have a Dan Electro baritone I got from a good friend in town here, but when I heard another songwriter friend of mine was in the market for one, I kind of passed it along to him. It's much more suited for the style of music he's playing and writing, and so I was kind of back to a baritone-less collection of guitars. But in that span of time, there seems to have been kind of a boom or a resurgence in the market for baritone guitars, and so I've had this kind of odd influx of baritones. As I look around the studio here, I'm noticing multiple baritones in the collection that have come in different ways. I've got a Balaguer Ambient Select Espada baritone that I did as a special run with Little Box Effects. I've got a Revolta baritone over in the corner there. That's a really cool instrument. And then this new Orangewood and Tritone Del Sol baritone marks the third baritone in the collection here in the last year and a half or so. And it's, I think, a marker of us as guitar players, as musicians. We're kind of always looking for that tool, that piece of gear that can kind of inspire us or pull us in different directions sonically or musically. And for me, the baritone has kind of been one of those things that has done just that. If you're like me, someone who grew up learning and playing on a traditional 6-string acoustic or electric guitar, it is similar but very different instrument in feel and in tone and in timbre. Baritones kind of give you this happy medium between that guitar tone and tuning and a bass register instrument, where you get to kind of experience the 6-string nature of it, be able to play chords or scales or notes, but have that kind of down-tuned, heavier, thicker feel and presence in whatever you're playing. You can even notice this if you're playing a guitar and a baritone side by side. When you're playing the same notes on either, just the nature of the thicker strings, the longer scale, different string tensions and the like, just give you a different kind of response from the instrument, as well as a different texture and tone, even if it is in the sort of subtlety of the differences there. But I think that they're really fun to have around in the studio. And while there might be sort of a leaning towards that like heavier down-tuned sound and genre when we talk about baritones, there's also some really fun use cases in the sort of country Americana world, in the shoegaze kind of world with some different effects like chorus and reverb and delay and beyond. So there's just a lot of different ways you can use it. It's sort of a fun challenge and adventure to take the instrument and kind of find its place and find its use case in your writing and your recording. And so that for me has been the fun of having baritones in the studio. And we're going to dive into the Del Sol specifically here because I think it's a really, really cool example of an approachable baritone that sounds and plays really, really well. It's at a price point that seems pretty approachable and quite impressive for what you get. And so we're going to dive into the details of that now and then hear some sounds from it. Big thanks to Orangewood for sending this guitar over. They sent it in exchange for this video, and so I'm going to share my thoughts about it genuinely because I want you guys to be informed about the things that you're considering buying and kind of know what you're getting into. For me, these videos are an effort to kind of help people find the right gear for them, but not so much to just go out and buy the next hot thing. And so hopefully this video can be helpful in that process for you. First off, I think the concept of this baritone is just a really fun and cool thing. It began as a collaborative partnership between Tritone guitars over on the East Coast and Orangewood out in California. I've actually had the pleasure of playing a Tritone guitar before, and they're really cool, handmade, uniquely designed instruments. And so the Del Sol, this body type and kind of the whole concept started out as a design concept from Tritone guitars and was kind of refined and then brought to market by Orangewood and the crew over there. So you have this unique kind of offset style body. It's a semi-hollow with a single F hole here, which gives it just kind of an air and a life and an acoustic presence to it when you're playing it. It's an all mahogany body, which definitely lends to its sort of warmer, darker kind of sound and feel throughout, and we'll talk about that as we go along. You have a really nice and super comfortable roasted maple neck on this guitar, as well as a rosewood fretboard with some nice inlays on the fretboard here. It's a 27.5-inch scale length and has a 12-inch radius on the fretboard. You have a tune-o-matic style bridge down here. You've got some locking tuners on the headstock up here, and a control plate with a couple controls and a switch here. So you have your master volume for your pickups, you've got your master tone, and then this mini toggle is a phase switch that works when you're in the middle position. It throws these two pickups out of phase for just a really unique kind of almost mid-scooped and very noticeable change in tone and feel. We'll show that in the sound samples, of course, and you'll get a feel for what that does, but it really kind of transforms the sound of these pickups in a unique way. You've got two custom designed P90 style pickups. I think they're a great choice for this guitar and for baritones in general to kind of ride that medium between single coil and humbucker. They do, again, lean towards the warmer side of things, as you'll see in the sound samples. But as I've been playing this guitar and kind of leaning into what it sounds and feels like, it really is a kind of warmer, richer, kind of grittier type instrument. So if you are looking for something that's going to be really pristine and sparkly and chimey, it doesn't lead with that. You kind of have to find ways to pull that out of it if you want it. But the kind of richness and fullness and growl that you can get from this is really cool. And you can kind of find some fun pairings with overdrive or other effects or with certain amps to kind of just let it roar and let it kind of breathe in its own unique way with these pickups, with the semi-hollow construction and all of that. So we're going to get into the sound samples here and show you some clean, dirty, and affected sounds with the Sol Baritone. If you're new to the channel here, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video and engage with the channel. Please hit subscribe below if you're new, and drop a question or a comment you have about the Sol Baritone or anything else you've seen or heard on the channel here. I'd love to engage with you there. So let's hear some sounds. that's the Sol Baritone from Orangewood Guitars and Tritone, a really fun collaborative partnership between the two to bring what I think is a really quite impressive baritone to the market. If you are someone who's sort of looking for your first baritone or kind of wanting to get into the sounds and the textures of the baritone, I think this is a pretty compelling option. Comes in right under $700 new, which in today's market is sort of the low to mid tier of pricing for an instrument that I think is kind of ready to gig and to play with and to kind of grow with. And it from the get-go has been a really comfortable, easy playing instrument that has some fun sounds to it. The fit and finish of this guitar has been great. The neck feels really good and comfortable. It looks really cool in my opinion. I think they did a great job with the design and the aesthetic of this, and some fun kind of design choices with this brushed metal control plate. The phase switch is a cool addition too tonally, and I think it's just a pretty great value in the world of baritones. My only one critique, and this is really a personal preference type of thing, it's not a flaw of this instrument, but it is in the pickups and sort of the voicing of these pickups. They are warmer, they are kind of richer and a little bit grittier, and so it does kind of have you leaning into that like thicker, heavier tone. I just personally kind of tend towards the instruments that start out with a little bit more clarity, a little bit more of that brightness and chime to them, and then find ways to kind of darken that tone up or create kind of grit or saturation other ways. But again, that's a very preferential thing. And so if you are looking for something that does kind of lean into that thick, like down-tuned, big, bold sound, I think this is a really cool option, and one that feels and plays really well and looks really cool. If you want to learn more about Orangewood, they've got a ton of really great acoustic guitars, some that I've featured on the channel here too, and they're continuing to do some cool things in the guitar world for players that are on a tighter budget or want to kind of get into instruments without spending a ton of money. So check out their website. Thanks again for watching this, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care.